Oh, hello, folks. It's Welsh British here again. Haven't been here for a few days, have I? But you've all been relieved. Anyway, look, I thought I'd pop in today because it's getting closer, isn't it? The Prime Minister in waiting, our dictator, Mr. Andy Burnham. My God. So it's an update, really, isn't it? Because people just don't know Mr. Burnham. He's a very unknown character to a lot of people, not to me, um, but to a lot of people. I can remember him in the Blair government. He wasn't particularly very impressive there either. And then he spent a long time as Mayor of Manchester. And there's been controversial views on where he stood in terms of the grape gangs and things going on up there, and how successful, or more to the point, unsuccessful he was in Manchester. Very good at painting the right picture and better at talking than Starmer. But nonetheless, um, doesn't seem to be, a bit sus, really. Anyway, he's the Prime Minister in waiting now, isn't he, whether we like it or not? And I've been listening to some various things. One thing that struck me, was that when he gave that speech in Manchester, there was no slot at the end for questions, was there, from the media, like you see with Trump, actually. Old Trumpy, he's fairly good at that. He gives time to the media, he takes direct questions and he answers those questions, and he's quite sort of affable, with the press, really, which I think is really good. And you see that to, well, I suppose, a much, much, much less degree with the Starmer dictatorship, wasn't it? They particularly made statements, really, when it suited them, um, and then took some questions maybe afterwards, but nowhere near as much as old Trumpy. But Burnham, he seems to be very, very quiet. He seems to be avoiding exposure to the press. One would be expecting to see him sort of being interviewed on various television news programs, wouldn't you? So he's got a chance to put himself forward. He's got a chance for the people of the country to get to know him and stuff like that. But none of that seems to have gone on. And what his intentions are when he gets into government. I believe he said that he will stick to the Labour manifesto, but a lot of the things that's going on with Labour is not on the manifesto anyway, is it? The state control stuff, the dismantling of democracy stuff, the clamping down on free speech. That was never in the Labour manifesto. So I don't know quite what he means by he's going to follow the Labour manifesto. I suppose he knows either. It really is rather laughable, isn't it? When we end up at the beginning with an opposition that's been in opposition for 14 years, plenty of time to sort of plan what they want to do, and draw their policies up, and should have a really good, thorough manifesto telling you exactly what they're going to do or want to do. So everyone knows what they're voting for. But no, they come in with virtually no plans, and they do lots of things that are not even on their manifesto. Where's the bit about restricting free speech? I didn't see that in their manifesto. I didn't see them dismantling democracy in their manifesto. Uh, and I didn't see them sort of, placing all these restrictions in their manifesto. You would have thought they would have a commitment in their manifesto, wouldn't you, to properly investigate the grape gangs and put a stop to it. But no, not a word in the manifesto. And of course, that's something they've not really done either. So anyway, what I thought I'd do is I thought I'd do a breakdown of the sort of stuff that I've heard, really. So I can't guarantee it's all true or anything like that. But I think that, one could almost guess where he's going anyway. So to nip through some of the stuff quickly, well, I say quickly, there's such a string of things here. Chagos Islands, he's going to give them to Indonesia, so it's been said. So why would he want to give those to Indonesia? Indonesia have never owned the Chagos Islands. They've not had anything to do with the Chagos Islands at all. The only part that the Indonesians had with Chagos was that we, the British, were running the Chagos Islands from Indonesia. They weren't managing it or running it for us. We were doing it ourselves, but from the Chagos Islands. So they've had nothing to do with the Chagos Islands at all, the Indonesians. So why on earth anyone could see that they have a right to that to the Chagos? I don't know. And they're over 1,500 miles away from it as well. It's not, though they're sort of close to it. They haven't really got that argument either. Yet international law dictated that Britain should give the Chagos Islands to the Indonesians. And that was advisory, all this claptrap about international law that you hear these plonkers going on about. You don't have to adhere by international law. It's merely recommendations. That's all. So if I recommend that you go stick your head in a toilet pan, would you? Of course you wouldn't. As daft as modern politicians. So that's that knocked on the head, really, isn't it? And yet, Dictator Starmer, apparently, from what I've heard, if it's true, he is planning on giving the Chagos Islands to Indonesia, come what may, and give them £35 billion so that they can reduce their income tax to nil in Indonesia, while we're paying the highest tax we've paid probably since the Napoleonic Wars. So that makes sense, doesn't it? That makes a lot of sense. That's what you call Labour common sense. The next thing I got down here is tax. Well, need I say any more about that? What are they going to do? Tax the rich more and watch more of them leave? Now, I hear that one of the things that Dictator Starmer has been thinking of, so I've heard, is that he is going to have a tax for warehouses like Amazon and so forth. But of course, he's not going to tax the working people. So, of course, people like Amazon, they'll just go to Northern Ireland or somewhere like that, and dispatch all their goods from there instead of dispatching them from inside the United Kingdom, and then their problem solved, isn't it? But it will cost them a little bit more to deliver in the UK, and no doubt they put their prices up. So what have we got? The working people will be paying that tax because it will be passed on to us. So this is again Labour common sense. They really don't know what they're doing, do they? You've got to laugh or you'll cry, honestly. Right, there you go on this illegal immigration. It seems to me that what Dictator Starmer seems to be saying, or should I say dictator-elect, that he's not going to stop immigration of illegal immigrants. He's going to let it carry on and on. There's going to be even more. So I've heard, and so I wouldn't be surprised. When it's absolutely ridiculous. We can see by the statistics, we can see by crime statistics who's committing crime in this country. We can see where the problems lie. We hear up and down the country that some of these immigrants are illegal immigrants are sitting outside school playgrounds drinking beer, and that's not that natural. That's very iffy, isn't it? Blimey, Charlie. You remember when you were young, when you was about 20 or 30 or late teens, what did you do with your peer groups? You used to hang around kids' playgrounds and school playgrounds, drinking beer, watching the kids, did you? No, of course you didn't. It's just so well dodgy, man. Absolutely dodgy. And then it's going to culminate in places where there's more illegal immigrants placed than there is people in the villages. Like one area in the country where there's 800 villagers, they were planning on putting 1,200 illegal refugees near the village. Now, what does common sense tells you that's stupid? But I suppose they're acting over Labour common sense, and that's totally different to what the normal person in this country sees as common sense. Oh, dear, dear, dear. They'd make good comedians, wouldn't they? The trouble is, the results of what they do isn't funny at all. This is a problem. But and then we got the online ban for under 16s. So you've got dictator Starmer and maybe even dictator Burnham elect are standing up, sort of telling us about how they're interested in the safety of women and children. They are. They're really interested in keeping you girls and keeping you ladies safe. Yes, they want to keep you safe. But the thing is, when people say these things, you have to look at the way they behave because that tells you the truth, doesn't it? So, when it comes to the grape gangs and what's been happening there, we think well over 250,000 young girls, some boys as well, if not a lot more, have been victims of these grape gangs over time. And the government have done very little about it. Some would even say they've been turning a blind eye. Some would be saying they even tried to cover it up. And then when it came round to a national inquiry, what was it that Starmer said? No, the right-wing bandwagon, wasn't it? That's how seriously he was taking it, talking about the right-wing bandwagon. So if you dare to mention, sticking up for women and girls when there's hundreds of thousands of girls that have been raped, Starmer says it's the right-wing bandwagon. Disgraceful, isn't it? Absolutely unbelievable. Labour logic. Then there's the inquiry. They turned the inquiry down. Was it twice or three times? I think it was twice, to be fair to them, wasn't it? It wasn't three times. It was only twice that they were trying to avoid the national inquiry and trying to sweep it all under the carpet. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. So then when they were eventually had so much pressure put on them, they voted to have a national inquiry. How generous of them, how caring of women and girls was that of dictator Starmer's dictatorship. But then since then, they got it to go as slow as possible. Some of the victims, survivors, have backed out of it because they were trying to be controlled and they could see that they were trying to limit the scopes. Cut here, little cut there, to try and sweep as much as you can under the carpet. So they left it. And now it's not going to be, the outcome of it's not expected to be till after the next general election, assuming we're going to have one at all. And that would be after 2029. So that's sweeping it under the carpet, put the can down the road. Why? Because we care so much about girls, women and girls. That's their actions. What does that tell you? So when they turn round and they say to you that they want to have a ban on under 16s going onto the internet and social media, and they want to introduce VPNs, what does that tell you? Does that tell you that they care about women and girls? I mean, what a load of old codswallop. What on earth do they expect us to believe? Do they think we're all stupid? Well, they obviously do. They probably do think we're all stupid. Because quite clearly, it's nothing to do with women and girls whatsoever. What it's to do with is moving towards bringing in ID cards. It's moving in towards restricting free speech. And it's moving in towards making it very difficult for anyone to see any opinions or any truth that's outside their Marxist narrative. They want to hide things from us. Now people only want to hide things from you when things are bad. If they had lots of wonderful, nice things to tell us, then everybody'd be allowed to say what they want, wouldn't they? So, you, the intelligent public, not the thick people like government seem to think, actually know what their game is. We're not stupid. That's not stupid at all. Then they want to control Facebook and they want to control YouTube and they want to manipulate it. so that you have to watch the BBC, so you have to watch Sky, so you have to watch ITV and these channels, rather than the channels that you watch now that will not only tell you the truth, but they'll show you the truth. They don't just do a little clip that gives you an impression. They show you a good video that gives you a good idea as to what's actually going on somewhere, and they tell you the truth. Probably more verified than most things the BBC say, because they don't verify things. Half the things they come out are completely untrue or manipulated to make you think in a certain way. So why are they so frightened? I mean, this government are shitting themselves. They really are. If they've got to control us that much because they're frightened what we might find out if they don't control us, wow, what are they up to? Well, what are they up to? Which takes us on, really, doesn't it, to something else I heard, which may or may not be true, to be fair. But what I did hear was that Dictator Burnham is thinking of having free state restaurants throughout the country. And apparently that's going to be costing £10.1 billion a year. Well. Now, I say I don't know if that is true, but what one comment I heard, which was interesting, was that if this is true, then Burnham must see this country and where it's going. And it must be going in a direction that is so severe, so nasty, and going to take us into such a sort of depression, like the 30s, whatever, but something much, much, much worse than we've experienced for 100 years, possibly, to the point where people are going to be starving. And he's got to then put state restaurants out there to make sure that people actually are managing to eat the minimum amount they actually need. That was just an opinion and a point of view given by somebody, certainly not confirmed. But it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. It would actually give the answer to all the clamping down, really, wouldn't it? That this government wants to clamp down and have so much state control, and wants to control what we see to the point because they're so frightened as to what's going to be happening in the next 5, 10, 15 years that they have to hide it from us. It is dangerous. We are being taken to a very dangerous place by our government, and we should be very worried about that. I would recommend very highly that you watch Daniel, the Black Belt barrister. He's very good at telling the truth. Watch him, listen to what he has to say, and then think to yourself, why would somebody want to stop or minimize us watching him? 2CTV, I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that 2C is thinking of moving his operations to operate from the United States. What does that tell you? Why on earth would he want to move to the United States and work from there? What does that tell you? The other thing that I've heard, don't know if it's true, is that Dictator Burnham is thinking of giving some sort of tax relief to rich people of up to tax back on up to £5 million, I think, if they come back to this country. Now, that is an admission of what the people in this country said all the way along the line, wasn't it? Is that the Chancellor of the Exchequer was telling us that her tax rises wouldn't affect working people. So she puts up the rich tax. They go abroad, we lose not only the increase in tax that they would pay, but we lose all the tax they were going to pay. And it means there's less money coming back into the Treasury. Now, millions of people in this country know that because they got a bit of common sense, and it doesn't take much thinking to work that out. It's so easy for people to go and work abroad with technology now. So it's an admission into a complete failure of the last government and the last Chancellor, or the one that's just about to go down the pan. So really, to be honest, at the end of the day, the reason I'm laughing is because if I didn't, I'd be crying, because they are proving to us how incompetent they are. How incompetent they are. And all we're going to have with Andy Burnham is a Keir Starmer who's actually got a little bit of a personality, somebody that you could probably listen to for 5 minutes without throwing a brick at your television. That's all. It's the same again. Absolutely the same again. So God help this country, because we're going to need somebody's help. So I'll say goodbye for now. After I've said support the Pink Ladies. They're the real people standing up for women and girls in this country. Support the Pink Ladies and join them. And then you can see where they're going to do their demos, and you can join in the demos as well if you like. So support them. Look on Google. Have a look at the Free Speech Union. Absolutely brilliant. We need people to stick up for free speech, and we should be supporting the Free Speech Union. And by being a member of the Free Speech Union, it actually gives you some protection as well. So please look on Google, look up the Free Speech Union, have a good read of it, and join it. And why not? And that's more or less about it. I'd just like to say, have a lovely weekend. Enjoy the football tonight. Come on, England. Get the barbecue out. And, well, they better win. Up the 3 Lions. Bye, folks.